Hey, it's Nay. Get ready for all things educating, all things motivating, and all things inspiring. Welcome to my third episode of Tea Time with Nay, where I discuss the topics of trusting the process and staying determined. Many of us have problems with staying motivated. One day, we're excited and inspired, ready to work and grind the whole entire day. Then the next day, it can be the total opposite. In this podcast, I discuss the ups and downs of one following their dreams and working towards their goals. It is not easy, so sit down, get a cup of tea, and open up your ears and your mind, because this roller coaster called life has no seatbelts. I call this one Trusting Your Process. Don't miss out on stories from actual African American legends and figures that will, without a doubt, inspire you to reach further. This is Tea Time with Nay. So before we start, I just had to say, I hope you are enjoying a nice cup of tea. It does wonders for your mind and your body, and altogether, your soul. Shout out to all my green tea lovers. If you're familiar with this podcast, then you already know what I am sipping on. So, to start this podcast off, I just wanted to shout out the wonderful guests I had in my previous podcast, Simi, Tanasia, and Jaquira. They made this experience for me amazing. Getting back into making podcasts again, they reminded me why I do what I'm doing and why I love it so much. So thank you, ladies, so much. I will have more interviews in the future, but my podcast is not just education from interviews, it's education right from my desk with candles and my mic on hand. If I was talking in front of people right now, I would ask my question and see a raise of hands. But because I'm here and you're there, wherever there might be, I just want you to self-examine yourself as I go through some topics and questions. Now, do I fit this category? Is this one of the places I'm weak in? All that type of stuff. So just relax and listen up. In our lives, we always feel that hype, whether it's because something exciting is soon to happen, maybe we're currently doing something that brings our mood up, etc. So there are so many times that give us that quote-unquote high. Myself, I know that feeling all too well, but I'm also very familiar with the opposite side of the hype, the uninspired meh feeling that we get when we feel like life is just being wasted and we have no idea what we're doing on this earth. Now, from having experienced our past, we know what it felt like and what to expect if our past were to ever repeat itself. Our future, on the other hand, is totally different. Sometimes I feel like the unknown, our future, is killing us more than our past. I say this because with our past, good or bad, we've hopefully learned from it. So we've sort of, in a way, built immunity to that certain thing, person, experience, lifestyle, etc. The future, on the other hand, we have no idea about. So, and even if we work the hardest to make the future how we want it to be, if it's not meant to be, it will never be. That's honestly the hardest pill to swallow. Knowing that your life, it is a decision and your choice to either make or break your progress, yes, but your life, no matter how hard you work or what you do, what's meant to be will be. So how does a person work towards their goals? Something that they see every day in their mind, but it's something that they want to eventually see right in front of their eyes one day. They want to be able to actually touch it and actually be surrounded by it. How do we manage the bumpy roads, roller coaster drops, and twists that bring us upside down? How do we keep moving forward? In life, we grow up either having the best or worst support system. We go through phases in life where we might have to cut people off and start fresh, but one thing I've taken away from all of this is that you can never run away from your problems and struggles. And if you do run, odds are you will only be ending up running in circles. When you're lost and you say to yourself, didn't I just pass this tree or this rock already? We don't want that. Get yourself a good supporting circle of friends and family. And to be honest, it feels weird separating friends from family from my point of view, because if you're really good friends with me, then you are my family, all right? There's no two ways about it. You are my family. I know I'm not the only one who feels the same way. So, what's next? You've made it up in your mind that you want more. You want better, not just for you, but for the people around you. Once you feel that fire in your soul, that feeling of no matter what, I've got to keep on going, you should know you've got a good thing going. Don't let the thought of, there being a struggle prevent you from seeing your dreams through. It's no different than hiking up a mountain. From the bottom, it looks rough. Looks like pain, looks like sore thighs, it looks like running out of breath. But with persistence, a good mindset, and the right resources to keep your energy up, you will eventually reach the top. And when you do reach the top and look to see all of the beauty around you, all that you have conquered and all that you have accomplished, all from which you came from to be in a better place, that's when you realize, okay, this is why I'm here. Looking at the beautiful people like Maya Angelou, Solomon Northup, Ruby Bridges, and Zora Neale Hurston, there is an endless list of wonderful African American individuals who have overcome their struggles to move on better and bigger things in life. The beauty in it is that not only did they shed radiant light for themselves, they shined it on all of us. You can read it in their work, see it in their actions, and hear it in their voices. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be great, and there's nothing wrong with always wanting something better. However, there is something wrong once those negative thoughts start coming and you want to give up. Failing is a part of life, and in so much you should expect it to happen. Take it as an episode in your life where you learn and grow like a plant. Plants need water, they need light, they need to be rooted and grounded, they need good soil, something that will help absorb the moisture they need to survive. One thing that sticks out to me most about plants is space. Oftentimes when we're planting seeds in the ground or in our pots, sometimes we'll read the instructions on the back that tell us how far each few seeds should be separated by. It's just like people. If you are too close to what other people are doing and progressing in, if you are way too much up in everybody else's business and you're not worrying about your own, you will never grow. Never, ever, ever. You need to be in your own space. And some of you are probably asking, okay, but how does this have anything to do with staying motivated and trusting the process and the like? Well, listen up. Your crowd affects you. The people you hang around affects you. The people you tell your goals and your secrets to affects you. The people you let talk thoughts into your head, whether it be good or bad, it affects you. Those thoughts are like roots planted in your mind. They better be good thoughts, because if they're the opposite, you are definitely going to need to weed those out. That is, if you have the strength and the know-how to do so, because not everybody does. You don't need anything or anyone affecting your growth at all. This is one of the things that will help you stay motivated and on that grind. If you think of someone like Maya, she was wonderful, lovely, powerful individual all by herself. But even she had, if I were to use the phrase, homies, that she hung around. People that she supported and that supported her and who she worked close together with. One of her closest friends was Martin Luther King Jr. Keep your circle small and make sure that your circle is a strong supporting circle. Stop hanging around people who are no good for you. Stop hanging around people who always put you down or call you out when you've done something #wrong. There are always going to be people just wanting to see you fail, who want to see you give up, who want to see your dreams destroyed. But you have to be bigger than that. You have to be stronger than that. That's where mental strength comes in. I'm so happy to be doing this podcast, can I just say, because there are so many good things to talk about, especially focusing on our culture and lifestyle in the Black community. Mental health is so important, and honestly, I believe that it isn't talked about enough, especially for young people. As an artist, most of my artwork comes straight from the soul, but other times I will be moved to create something solely from my mind something that I had to plan out prior to, and mental health is one of those things. And as an honest person, I've got to be real with you. If you do not control your mental health and stability, anything else that you want to achieve and chase after in life is not going to work out for you, because your mental health problems will always follow you wherever you go. You just got to have that strong mentality, or else there is no way that you are going to be able to be your own self-motivator. And yes, I said that, self-motivator. Before you expect people to just come out of thin air and motivate you all the time, you need to first be able to motivate yourself. This comes from positive thoughts. This comes from knowing your reality, but also knowing your possibilities. You need to have the mindset, of even if I fail, even if something happens, good or bad, I will be able to stay humble and rise anyhow. Being a victim of rape, as I move back to the beautiful Maya, she went on to not speak. She spent around 5 years in complete silence, y'all. 5 years. It takes strength to overcome traumatic obstacles as well as mental ones. If Maya decided to stay quiet the rest of her life, if she decided to stay inactive at the problems and issues at hand, many of the wonderful words we read today would not be here. To be so young, not even 10 yet, and to have gone through something like that and still eventually find the strength in you to move on and move forward, that comes from your mind. How are you encouraging yourself? How are you keeping yourself positive? It's so easy to drown yourself in negativity. I know this feeling all too well. Many of us have struggled with depression and anxiety and so many other things. It's very important to know that you're not alone, but also know that you can overcome it eventually. It does take time. Especially being Black, we don't always get diagnosed the right mental issue, if at all, okay? This is 2021. We still have problems with being diagnosed the proper way. We need to educate ourselves and each other on things, of these topics, because they are very important in so much that they could even save someone's life. As I mentioned before, people like Solomon Northup, Ruby Bridges, and Zora Hurston all have their own stories. I seriously urge you to educate yourself more on the past lives of these people and other legends that have come and gone. For those of you who have never heard of Solomon, he was born free. He worked the family farm and even played the violin until his life took a deep turn and he found himself a slave. He spent 12 years in slavery on a plantation. Y'all know me and my heartfelt, eye-opening stories, okay? If you want to know the entire story, then feel free to read up on it more and even watch the film 12 Years a Slave. But back to my point, how does someone go from a free man, a wonderful musician, a husband, and a father to a now kidnapped, drugged, and sold into slavery man? His life took an ugly turn, but what was once ashes was later on turned into beautiful flowers. It took years for Solomon to be free and get the help from his other people in the North to rescue him, but once his slavery was over, that's when the real work began. Because this story had caught the attention of so many people, Solomon went on to engage in speaking tours about his experience. The story of his memoir sold about 30,000 copies over a span of 3 years. All this other stuff, and he even used some of the proceeds to buy him an actual proper house, finally, for him and his family. His actions and his voice helped others escape from slavery as well, using the Underground Railroad. So, I don't mean to sound like some historical audio book, but to me, this is some deep, eye-opening stuff. Many times, I try and think, like, if I were a slave, would I have even lasted that long? Although it was an ugly life, something beautiful came from it. Looking at his life, it's almost impossible not to be interested in learning more about his story. There will be things in life that will get in the way of your success, and some of those might last for a short amount of time, and some of those might last a lot longer. Whether it's financials, people, other things, etc., you cannot let them prevent you from reaching your goals. Solomon was a slave for 12 years. Now, sure, to a person who was born in slavery and died in slavery, that's only just the tip of the iceberg. But to know what freedom tastes like and to have it taken away, I bet you those 12 years felt a lot longer. So you have to realize that you have the present. Think to yourself, what is holding you back? What is preventing me from following my dreams? Use these questions to motivate you into action. Stop waiting for people to come into your life with the green light and say go. You tell yourself go, and you will start to reap the benefits of your hard work. I don't know how many times I'm going to end up saying it throughout this whole entire podcast, but life isn't easy at all. All right, in my eyes, Solomon's story beams light to me because I think about all the times I've felt like I was being held back. I felt like I couldn't do anything meaningful in my life. Don't wait for your freedom to be threatened before you do something with your life and make a difference. Solomon was working, mainly known for his fiddling on his violin. So to get by and supply for his family, he was doing that. But if slavery never took place in his life, who would to say that his situation would have stayed the same his entire life? Not really making a difference in people's life. But he went through that. Now having something to share with the entire world, as the church girl in me, I'm thinking right now to myself, like, how is there ever going to be a testimony without a test type vibe? So you need to trust the process, even if you don't know what's going on. You need to trust it. When I'm not comparing myself to a plant, I think of myself like clay. I know where my source of life and breath comes from. For others with different beliefs and values, I know that your story can be different. But even in so much, knowing that there's a higher power than me who gives me the strength and life to do all these things, I just can't let my life go to waste. I am clay in the potter's hands. God will move me and bring me to where he wants me to go. And I just need to trust the process, all right? There's nothing I can do about it. For all of my other church people out there, I know y'all can relate as well. It's a beautiful thing to be able to share your story and what you've been through, because whether we realize it or not, we are helping other people. I can't count the times when someone has messaged me to tell me just how much I encouraged them or inspired them. To me, it comes as a shock most of the time, because looking at myself and my ridiculously goofy blonde self sometimes, I don't see that inspiring light all the time, but what's meant to be is meant to be. For whoever's listening, I just want to say this. Everything happens for a reason. I didn't really realize the term trust the process until I was in college. I had no idea God had planned for me what he had planned for me. And thinking to myself now, I'm like, man, can't nobody do it good like God. When I was in college, I got a part-time job working fast food. I hated it, all right? I had my little work study job in college as well, so that was something that kept me sane. But I had to also make that extra money too to save up. So every day I went there, I couldn't help think to myself, like, man, I cannot wait until my art and music and everything else really take off, because I'm not sure how much more I can take. After I was done complaining, like always, I thank God for my job regardless, because I'd rather have this job than be unemployed. Heard me. But I truly believe that we are put in a certain place on this earth to really show us life. Working there, I saw how much I wanted to make my dreams come true even more. I wanted more. I worked with people there, some longer than others, and crazy as it seems, some people were perfectly content working there for a long time. What's wrong with working here? It's fine here. Why do I need to get another job? The pay's fine, all this other good stuff. But to me, that feeling of frustration, like I don't belong here, really started ringing out to me. But like I said, everything happens for a reason. Not only do I still have friends that I keep in touch with from working there, but it also brought me in some potential clients for my business in the art and fashion spectrum. There are so many days when I will be there bringing in altered clothes, fixing $1,000 bags, making masks, selling art, while also getting my fast food check in some. I learned more on the business side of things while also sharpening my skills as an individual. In high school, I was a strong introvert, okay? I did not want to talk to people. I didn't have time for people's nonsense, and I just wasn't with it. So going from there to a job that I have to speak up, I have to communicate, and so on, in other words, it made me tougher. All right, because people are rude. They're rude. And working there taught me how to stay humble and quiet in certain situations, even in the hardest of times. And other times I spoke up and said what I had to say. So it molded me into the person that I am today. With finding who I was in college, to working fast food, to making art and exploring all things art and music, the list goes on. I learned to trust the process, even though I didn't know at the time where it would lead me, and I still don't know where it's leading me to. Now I'm still learning to trust the process. Was it easy? Of course not. Is it easy? Of course not. It's still hard and difficult at times. But whatever you get in life, you need to learn from it best you can, no matter how much you don't like it, because you never know when you will need to use what you learned years ago. Now, let's make this clear before I go any further. We all go through things, and to some, one person's load might be bigger and heavier than someone else's, but that does not mean that they are not going through. In some of my love series videos, I know I've mentioned that sometimes things aren't as bad as they seem, and there is always going to be someone else going through something worse than you. But honestly, even though that might be true in some cases, we need to know that it's okay to acknowledge that we are going through. There was so many times when I was dealing with something, it could be totally mental or something going on in my life, and because I felt like it wasn't that big of a deal, it wasn't that big through other people's eyes, I would try and downsize it. I would try and make my problems smaller than they really were. And I wouldn't talk about them to anyone. I wouldn't even want to think about them much at all, to myself even. And that's what made it worse. Be understanding of everyone else's problems and issues. We all struggle with something, at least something. But to think that you don't have a right to be upset or sad or whatever because you don't think your problem is that big is absolutely absurd, all right? For an example, if we were to compare the beautiful Maya with Solomon, some might say that, well, Solomon, of course, he had the bigger problem. He went through way worse, but why are you comparing two totally different flowers in time? Being a young rape victim living in a world of horrible segregation was a struggle for her, just as much as it was for a free man to have been forced into slavery for a time to have been freed again. Even at our most successful parts in our life, there will be things that go on to affect us for years to come. For those of you who don't know, like I said before, Maya was very close friends with MLK. So, sad to say it, he was assassinated on her birthday, for those of you guys who also don't know that. And tragedies like that will come, and even though it's hard at first to get through, I firmly believe that giving up should never be an option. This is something that I have to tell my students I work with all the time. I work mainly with second graders, and I've seen and I've heard so many crazy things from these kids. It's crazy how this generation of kids are they're already having self-esteem issues, and they're only 7, 8 years old. One of my girls said one day, "I'm fat." And I was so shocked, and I looked up at her and I was like, I had to assure her, I was like, "You are not fat." I was like, "You are beautiful, you are fine the way you are." And then I had to repeat myself again for the whole entire class, because I had to announce to the entire class, everyone in this classroom is not fat. Everyone is beautiful the way they are. We were all placed on this earth for a reason. When it comes to representation, that is something that I am so strong in. Working in a school has taught me a lot, but I have also been able to see for myself the impact that I have on the kids. When one of my second graders comes up and says to me, "Look, Miss Naomi, I'm wearing my hair like yours today," it makes me feel so good. Kids, especially girls of color, need to learn that it is more than okay to embrace who they are. And I believe that I'm that perfect person to show and teach them. There's a lot of people like myself who feel the exact same way. The start of this month, I went into some classes and I asked them, and I was like, do y'all know what the month of February was about? And the majority of them had no idea that it was Black History Month. Everyone kept asking, "Valentine's Day, it's Valentine's Day." Nobody once said Black History Month. Some of them even asked, "What's that?" And this was some colored kids asking me that too. And it made me a little triggered and frustrated, but not at the kids, but at our educational system. Because how can we spend time decorating doors? And I'm telling you, we spending weeks decorating doors for Valentine's Day and the other holidays, just one day out of the month, but a month that was dedicated for us no one educates or engages them on. Even though it made me feel in a weird space at that time, in a like, I cannot believe this mindset, I had to take it upon myself to teach all of the kids that I saw in a day about Black History Month. If no one else is going to do it, then I will. And that is when I once again said to myself, trust the process. God wouldn't have given me this job if it wasn't for a reason. So I will continue to educate them year round. I will continue to have discussions with them. I will continue to do my girls' hair and twists and other African American hairstyles. I will continue to represent. I know that I am different, and I know that I think a lot differently than other teachers and staff might think. But if there's one thing I know that the things that I teach and the things that I do really make a difference. I've seen it, I've heard it, and I've experienced it. The same goes with all of you. If there is something in your life that truly motivates you and moves you, that is your soul fire. For those of you who might not know what your soul fire is yet, just be patient. We all have at least one. While I'm speaking on this, the movie Soul just came to my mind. If you have not watched it, go ahead and do so. It's on Disney Plus, and it's an amazing movie. From kids to adults, it needs to be seen by people of all ages. It spoke to me on such a deeper level, but still the main idea of what am I doing with my life, or I have dreams that I want to achieve, although it's taking me forever and people are losing hope in me, I still need to see it through. It spoke so much to me, and as I'm sure it did to anyone else watching the film. Amazing. Okay, I'm done now. As I mentioned before in the beginning of the podcast, many of us have a problem with staying motivated. I can't count how many days I've felt so motivated to do something or to get stuff done, but then the next day it was like I woke up in the totally wrong mindset, and it was just horrible. Everything was the total opposite. It was a struggle for me at first to fight through it. All of us have different situations, but for me, it was always mainly mental. I was fighting myself and these thoughts about who I was, what I'm doing here, the whole shaboop shabop. And when this happens, you gotta take a step back and just honestly just take a deep breath. Ask yourself what moves you, what makes you feel good. What makes you excited to wake up the next day and start working? What is it that you see yourself doing? It can be so hard sometimes to clear your mind and your life of everyone else just to focus on you, but you have to do it. It's the only way that you will find that quiet peace, and then you will hopefully find what you're looking for. So many times I've just had to put my phone down and focus on me. Don't let anybody else, don't let any other person distract you. Just do you. I know that there's a lot of people who can relate to going on a quote-unquote social media fast or a social media diet. Social media is just one of those things where it feels so good to be on it sometimes, and before you know it, you've spent the majority of your day looking at other people's lives. And to me, that sounds pathetic. Some may feel like social media can be a totally positive place if you only follow the accounts that will actually make a positive difference in your life. Yeah, sure, that's true to a point. But even so, why are you spending the majority of your time looking at someone else's achievements when you need to be spending that time working for your own? Period. That's basically the point I'm trying to make. A long while ago, after making a new social media account for my art and my vlogs, I put on a time restriction for my Instagram. Every time I'm on Instagram, it sends me a reminder when it's been 20 minutes. Many times I don't even get that reminder because I'm not on it like that anyhow. But sometimes, whether for work or something, I will. You just need to manage your time. Manage your time on social media or on anything else that tends to take your time off of you. And again, I know that some might be asking, what does monitoring my time have to do with anything about trusting the process or staying determined? Okay, well, listen up. Your time is valuable. How can you see what you are able to do if you're just one of those people who go home to Netflix and chill all day, or you go on social media? It's a distraction from your reality at times, and it can really hinder your progress if you are not careful. You need to protect yourself. You've got to protect your mind, body, and soul. I'm not going to get into one of my inspirational phases and start talking about self-esteem and everything like that, because it will certainly take up the rest of this podcast episode. But my point is, not everyone has a complete positive social media experience. There can be people listening who have body shamed themselves for looking at, how other people make themselves look on social media. There can be people flaunting their wealth, their success, all that stuff. And that can make a person really feel down or discouraged. You see what the benefits of success are looking like, but you have no idea and you have no one or nothing to help you actually get there. That's when it hits the hardest, and it's like when you need to focus on you and put the phone down. See what inspires you straight on. What motivates and excites you to a certain degree. This brings us back to soul fire. What is your given soul fire? What do you dream about most times when it comes to achievements? What makes you say to yourself, yes, this is so me? And I have to add, you are going to have plenty of doubts still along the way, but you will constantly be reminded what truly is your soul fire. For example, as many of you know, I am an artist, but I do a lot of other things like YouTube, having this wonderful podcast, producing music, fashion designing, and so much more. One of the things that really made me want to fight was earlier in 2020, when all that police brutality was raging like wildfire. And here I am sitting in my house because of this pandemic while only going out to work and to go food shopping, all right? And I thought to myself, like, Nay, you have to do something, all right? And that's when I decided that I was going to organize my own protests here, right? In my small little town village where some people thought, like, well, there's no police brutality here, so, like, why are you even doing that? And trust me, we made a scene though. And throughout the process, I kept doubting myself and feeling scared, like, Nay, are you making the right decision? Do you know what you're getting yourself into? The feelings that I kept getting throughout, it was back and forth. Like, one day I was feeling that type of hype, like, yeah, I got this. I'm so excited for the protest. We're going to have a great time. Everything's going to go well. And then the next, it was like, what am I doing? What if something goes wrong? I had to stray away from other people's opinions and thoughts and work towards the vision that I had in my mind. I kept seeing me walk down the street with our signs, and I kept hearing the song that I made play. I kept hearing us chant those words while people performed to it. Like, I was at that moment. It was at that moment that I made it up in my mind, good or bad, I am going to see this through. And I did. I had to trust the process while still motivating myself to keep working and spreading the word, all that good stuff. All that stuff goes hand in hand, and if I decided that giving up was an option, I would have never been able to see what I saw, or hear what I heard, or experience all that I had experienced. And I would have never been able to hear all of the wonderful stories from the older heads that attended as well. I would have never been able to see my song come to life. You have to be prepared for the good and the bad. There's no sugarcoating it. Anything can happen at any time, and to think that you are exempted from it, it is ridiculous. We all have our share of trials coming ahead, which is why, like I stated before, we need our mental health up. We need our mental health in check. There is no way you can climb yourself out of a ditch if you don't have that mindset, the willingness, and the strength to do so. All right, so I wanted to just bring you back to another wonderful woman whose story has truly inspired me since I was a little girl, the beautiful Ruby Bridges. I remember watching the movie when I was maybe in 5th grade, and I remember thinking, like, yo, this little girl did that. Think of what I can do. And it always stuck with me. My thought was always this: someone so little made one of the biggest roars. And that made me realize, like, if I want something so bad, like really bad, I need to put my determined shoes on and go get it. I know that this is more of a racial justice issue than simply talking about your dreams and your goals, but if you actually pay attention to the lives of others, you can learn so much. Even though she was very young, Ruby trusted the process. I don't know how homegirl did it, but she did it. Being that young, every day, back and forth walking between officers, hearing an angry mob, trying to get to her destination, like, when I put it in my own translation of life, it's like God and my close circles are those officers. That angry mob, those are for sure my negative and downgrading thoughts. Those are the people telling me not to do it, the people that don't want to see me grow. And that destination for me is that place I want to be in, where I am successful, where I have achieved so much, and now I'm chasing an even bigger bag. To always be grateful, but to never be content, to always want more. And Ruby didn't just do that for her, but by the end of the year, the mobs had gotten way smaller, and she eventually wasn't the only colored student in that school anymore. That's how I want to be. I want to work hard for something that I firmly believe in, while also allowing others around me to reap some of those benefits as well. I truly want to be that kind of lady. I just want to remind everyone that beautiful things take time. If you plant a seed tonight, it is not going to straight out bud the next morning. If it takes that long for a plant, you have got to know that it is going to take that long and longer as a growing process for you as well. I think I have a weird obsession with plants, especially succulents, all right? I connect with them on a different level, and I don't really care whoever thinks I'm weird for saying that, but we all have things in this world that help us view life from a different perspective. Mine is a succulent plant. For others, it can be the study of birds, be an eagle, not a pigeon, lol. But for others, it can be a river, a tree, really anything. Something that motivates you and inspires you just from their sole existence alone. I think I love succulents so much because they still know how to grow even in the driest or darkest times. And to me, I take a lot from that alone. As humans, we are meant to be social people. And no, I'm not talking about the extroverted kind. I'm talking about always needing just that one person or those few people to, who you've always found to depend on. Well, what happens when they are no longer around? What happens when they can no longer be dependent on? What happens when they can no longer fight your battles for you? It's all back to you, just you and you alone. And for many of us, that can be very hard to do. Like I mentioned before, plants need space. They can't be so close to each other, but then again, not extremely far either. You gotta learn how to fight your own. All right, you got to learn how to fight on your own. You got to stop asking people their opinions and what they would do or what they think. Who cares? Do you. Be a succulent, all right? Even in your most driest, darkest time, the fact that you are still able to grow, yes. I'm such a geek when it comes to stuff like this. I get so excited about this topic, but being a succulent is part of my soul fire. It's something that it's always in my mind, and it goes wherever I go. I can't really get rid of it, even if I tried. The same thing is like with having the desire to inspire people. That's my soul fire. Even when I just want to be left alone at times, when I just want to do me and be invisible, then something comes along and I just can't help myself. Whether I wrote another song, did some spoken word poetry, created some more art, all of these things and more are part of me because I trusted the process and I kept going to see where everything would lead me. If I decided to give up on any of these talents years ago, I would not have been able to see how far I've come. Granted, I've still got a long way to go, but I've just got to trust the process and see where more of it leads me. I just wanted to say again how grateful I am to have this podcast to share my stories and my inspiration with you. I hope that all of you listening really educate yourselves on the matters at hand. There was a time when I was still in school. I wasn't as confident as I am now. If I had the knowledge of my African American history back then, things would have been a whole lot different. Even still to this day, I go out of my way to educate myself about certain people or events that are happening because I am not trying to live under a rock, y'all, all right? Wisdom and understanding is the light I need. I'm not trying to stay in no shade, all right? So you gotta go out and you gotta do some work. You cannot be lazy. Please remember that taking a break also for yourself is totally different though. All right, self-care, self-care, self-care. If I got paid to self-care, y'all, I would probably be a millionaire already, okay? I am so keen on that nowadays because before I always felt like if I'm not working, then I'm being lazy and I'm wasting my life and the hours of my day. But once I changed and improved my mindset, I was really able to rearrange my priorities and do things better for me. I hope that all of you listening will do exactly that. Give yourself a break and yes, work hard, but not to the extent that you put too much on your body. You've got to be balanced and stay in your zone. Trust the process and everything will turn out fine. And that just about sips it up on this Tea Time with Nay podcast, episode 3, Trusting Your Process. If you missed my first 2 podcasts and would like to listen to them on other platforms like SoundCloud, Anchor, and Spotify, all of the links and more are down below. This 3rd podcast will also be uploaded onto all supporting platforms as well if you like to give it another listen in the future. Share your thoughts and stories in the comments below with other listeners. I won't be leaving a pinned comment today because I've already left you all with plenty of my own stories during this entire podcast, but please feel free to share and inspire others. If you enjoyed this 3rd podcast of Tea Time with Nay, make sure you're subscribed and ready to receive notifications for next week's episode 4, Educating Ourselves One Sip at a Time. Ciao! For what is a woman? If we only focus on the ability of her bosom. And what is a man? If you can only take, but not give. Forget sugar and spice, look beyond those gray skies. I want wisdom and understanding, observation and education. Surround me with like-minded souls. All I want is to learn and wisen and grow. Push the negativity aside, just push it aside. Until it falls off that cliff where your dark thoughts are still hanging. Let us learn from one another and grow to help each other. Like a succulent in a dry place when it seems there is no rain. In a world full of darkness when all you feel is pain. From the tea bag into my cup, placed it on my coaster of life. Adding all the flavors of us inside. Stirring our thoughts, something so divine. Educating ourselves, one sip at a time.